Here to discuss these manuals is Miriam Boudreaux, President of Miro Management Solutions. Hi, Miriam.
Hello.
How are you doing?
Thank you for having me on your show.
Oh, sure. Okay, well, let's get right to it. In your first article, you say that your quality manual does not have to mimic the standard. What does ISO 9001 actually require when it comes to your quality manual?
Well, actually, the ISO 9001 standard does not mention at all that you have to have a quality manual that mimics the standard. It gives you very specifically 3 items that need to be present on your manual, one of them being the scope, an exclusion, your processes, and also a reference or inclusion of your own procedures. But it never really intended to say you have to verbatim repeat this standard when you are constructing your quality manual. It does require the quality manual to begin with.
Okay. So some auditors are actually kind of backing you into, they want to see you, mention, which clause and which subclause and so forth, and basically are forcing you to do something that you don't really have to do. So my question is, why not just fight them? Why not just say, hey, Mr. Auditor, I think you're wrong, and go to the registrar, their boss basically, and complain, or go to the registrar's accreditation body? I mean, they're trying to make you do something that isn't right, so why not just fight it?
That is a novel idea, actually. I have been in this world of ISO for probably close to 20 years, and I've seen the trend. And the trend and the expectations are you're going to have a quality manual that pretty much regurgitates the standard. So I think when we go into an audit, there's so many issues that have to be looked at. It's almost like, what files do you really want to pick? And so having to pick a file on the standard is probably not one that you want to go after. But it is a trend. I have never seen a quality manual anymore that will really just meet those 3 requirements and yet don't look exactly like a mirror of the standard. Now, on the audits that I have been myself, I've seen the auditors say, you are missing point E, or you are missing this word. So it's almost like I had it, I explained everything, but because I was missing bullet E or I was missing a certain word, I pretty much could have a non-conformity. So would I fight that? It's an easy one to solve, an easy one to answer, so we'd probably just let it go. Okay,
so you're kind of saying you could fight it, but pick your battles. You've got limited time. You're trying to get through an audit, and is it worth the fight? Is that kind of what I hear you saying?
In some cases, that's correct. Unfortunately, and that's the reason why I wrote the article, because sometimes I felt like, oh, this is enough. We already have all our manual mimicking the standard, and then I started seeing a trend that now our procedures needed to be looked and needed to read exactly like the standard, and it's like, no way. So that's why I wrote the article.
Miriam, do you think that some of this comes down to, I hate to even say this, but some of it comes down to auditors just kind of wanting to make it easier for themselves? It's kind of easier to do that checklist, even though we all know that's not really where the value of ISO 9001 is, but do you think that's maybe the core of what's happening here, is the auditors are just trying to make their lives a little easier?
Actually, that is one part of it. That is true. It is easier for the auditor to see that you met all the requirements by just going through a manual that looks almost like the standard, and then kind of like a checklist. But also, I feel that in a lot of cases, if you have an auditor that all it does is audit and is really a little bit disconnected from reality, then you really don't know. In reality, we operate a little different. In reality, this is not helping us. What is the value added? So that part is what I feel there's a little disconnect as well.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit, the value added. So, okay, so you don't want to go through the fight. It's kind of like, okay, this guy's wrong, but I don't want to deal with it. So you say there still is a way you can tailor your quality manual so that everyone is happy. The auditor's happy because it's easier for him or her to do the audit, and yet there's still some value in the manual. So how do you construct a manual so that you keep everybody happy?
Well, that's a good question. So believe it or not, you're still going to have to sort of adhere to what the standard says. And now on ISO 9001, you have a little bit more leeway in the sense that you could change your words. But on API, which is the specifications that we're heavily involved right now, you almost have to stick to the script because there is a conformity matrix that you have to fill out. So because of that, I'm not recommending you go and create a quality manual that fits in one page because really that's just not the trend right now. But in order to make it useful for you, I have companies put an introduction about themselves, put a really well thought out process map. But also one of the items that I presented on my second article was get your management team together and review the quality manual so they understand and they actually can give some feedback as to what goes in there. That part is seldom done. It's usually the quality manual is usually the job of a quality manager, a consultant, or somebody, one or two people. So having everybody together review it is actually what adds more value because you're going to see people coming up and saying, no, that procedure might not go in there, or reference this other procedure, or let's go back to the procedure and actually update it so it better reflects what the manual is asking for. That part has helped a lot, and you create a quality manual that is good and that actually could help a new employee, for example, get familiar with what the company is about.
And it's still something that's that the auditor is going to be happy with because it still kind of outlines.
That's right. Yes.
Okay.
I mean, you take one section of the standard and it doesn't align 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. The auditor gets lost. I mean, that's another one I have seen, so it's kind of unfortunate, but it happens.
Okay. Now, Miriam, before we go, we've been talking about a quality manual here. It's our understanding, and you know, the ISO 9001 2015 isn't out yet. It's still being developed, but there is quite a bit of talk out there that the new ISO 9001 may not require a quality manual. That may not be a requirement for the new version. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, actually, that was a really good surprise that we've seen on the draft. Unfortunately, the 9001 2015 is still a draft, so hopefully it will go out in 2015. I think there is a new draft set to release by June, so maybe we'll be getting closer to what is released. But it's probably going to be an improvement just because we don't have to dwell on the quality manual, and maybe we'll be dwelling more into the meat of what you're doing in your company, which is your processes and your procedure. So I like that. Unfortunately, for the people who are on the API spec Q1 and Q2, quality manual is right there, and those two standards, the 9th edition of API Q1 and the Q2, have just been released. So I doubt there's going to be a change on that side of the specifications.
Okay. Well, Miriam, our time's up here. Thank you for joining us today and talking about some ideas on how to construct currently your quality manual. If you want more information on Miriam's article, it's very good. If you just go to our look underneath our player, there's a link to part 2, and from there's also a link back to part 1. Miriam, thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay. Have a nice day.